Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing. Record the presentation so that everybody can watch it at a later time, or you can rewatch it again if there's any questions that you have. So welcome everybody tonight. This is Brandon. I'm Brandon Stevens, your electric superintendent here for the Tippecanoe County 4-H Electric Project. And I'm here to work with you and get you prepared to build your project. We're not going to build our projects tonight, but we'll go through some of the preparation to get you ready. And then probably next week, I'll send out another meeting invite, and then we'll have a second chance to go through, and we'll go through step by step in order for you to be able to assemble your project successfully. So welcome everybody here, and I've got a little presentation that I've put together, and I'm going to share that with you here. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a slideshow, and if you can't see the slideshow, somebody unmute your microphone and let me know. So I will do that. Let me find my slideshow here for you. Okay, can everybody see that? Nod your head, I think. Okay, good. All right, so our very first slide here, I've got this information up here about the electric manual that you can download in a PDF web form that is available from the extension website here in the state. So if you would like to go and get that manual, you can get that in an electronic format. You can also get printed manuals from the extension office. I believe they still have those in stock. There are limited number of those. I believe that when those run out, that they are not going to reprint those at this time. So they may not have them. You may want to call and ask them for that information if you want to get a printed manual, but probably most of you can print a PDF from this here at your home to have that and utilize those. There is also a CD that's available, and I'm not for sure, again, if the extension office has those or not. The CD does have a nice little game on it that you can play and learn a little bit about electricity and do some of the activities electronically. So if you would like to try to do that, you can also buy the CD from the extension office and check with them to make sure that they do have that also. The extension office, I know, said they will not be open until after May 1st, I believe the first Monday of the month. So maybe on May the 4th would be our first Monday of the month. And make sure to call with all the closings and everything that we have going on. We want to make sure that they are available before you go out there and make a trip to pick up anything. So we're going to limit our workshop here to 30 minutes tonight. So if you could stay with us for that time, that's great. If you need to leave at any time, feel free to do that. And again, this is being recorded so that you can come back and watch it later and see it at any time. If you need to contact me anytime, feel free to send me an email or call me. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. And my contact information is in the handbook there. So you can get my contact information or reply to the email that you received here for tonight. And then you might want to grab a writing utensil and a pad of paper if you have any questions you want to write down so you don't forget before the end of the session. You can ask them. And so I'll take any questions, or you can email those to me. But you might have a question that you might ask. It might be very useful, or some of our other participants may have the same question. So it may be very beneficial for you to ask that with all of our other participants here also. And then I'm going to hold our future workshops here again to assist you with the assembly project of the assembly of the project. So your circuit board that you will be building here, we'll do that online here in the next week or so. I haven't found a date yet that I would need to schedule that, but I'll get that information out to you. And again, your microphone's muted, so if you want to ask a question, just unmute your microphone there. Any questions so far for anybody? Okay. Well, so we'll talk about electricity. So what is electricity? Everybody is here to learn a little bit about electricity, I hope. And we've got two different kinds of electricity that you can have. And most of you are familiar with the kind of electricity that is in your homes. We call that AC electricity. And then also we have battery electricity that all of your electronic devices, maybe some of your games, your phones, your computers, anything that has a battery uses DC voltage, okay? Now, how does that a little bit different? So, you know, I plug my computer in, or you plug your computer into the wall, or your phone into the wall. So is that an AC electricity or DC electricity? Well, even though those devices plug into the wall, they're still a DC device. So they're using a battery, they're charging a circuit in there to charge up a battery. So the wall-based electricity, or AC electricity, are things like your toaster in the kitchen, a lamp, some kind of lighting circuit, okay? Those things would be our wall-based electricity, our AC electric, and our battery would be things like maybe a game system that you might have that's a battery powered, or a phone. So many of those things are around your house you'll find, and we'll have a activity that is for you to be able to go do a little hunting exercise there. The electrical circuit that we have here, and so how does electricity make things work? Well, electricity is the movement of electrons, and we'll talk about that in just a minute here, and we'll go through what that makes the electricity flow in a circuit, and then we'll talk about those parts of that electron. So we have different types of electrical circuits. We have open circuits versus closed circuits, and again, we'll cover those. We also have things we call conductors and insulators. And then we'll also learn some electrical terms that you'll be familiar with, so you can talk, maybe if you are able to talk with a judge about your project, you'll be able to talk about these electrical terms. And then there's some activities that you can do at home, and then we'll talk about how you can prepare to build your project for our future meeting. So what is electricity? Well, this is the battery versus the wall electricity that I talked about here. So there's an activity here that is on the PDF that you can get. And there's a little chart here that you can fill out down here at the bottom. This little chart is the list that you can go through and maybe pick a room, or you can do your house. Maybe in your room, you can list all the things that use some type of energy to make it run, okay? And then once you do that, we'll have a little list on there to take that list and then decide, is it a AC, a wall-based power, or is it a DC, a battery-powered circuit? So in your workbook or on your page there, you can fill that out and make those notes for each of those devices. And that's a nice little activity that you can go through. And some of you probably don't even realize all the things that you have plugged in. If your parents ever say, why is our electric bill so expensive? You know, you've got all these things plugged in, you're running all these different things. And there's lots of items that are using electricity all the time, even though you may not be using them. And we call that phantom power. And there's some devices that we are trying to make energy efficient so that when they're plugged in and not in use, they're not using electricity like your television or your cable box or some kind of other device like that. So this activity will get you a little activity to go through and make that list and decide whether they are powered by batteries or they're powered by the AC wall. So how does electricity make things work? So our electricity that makes things work, we have the form of energy that we're going to power our devices by. This energy can produce motion, it can produce light, heat, and power electronics. Our semiconductors are part of the electronics part. So energy is created by the movement of tiny particles we call electrons, and they're very tiny. You can't even see them with a microscope. You have to have a special microscope to see them that's very, very powerful. And you see there's a little graphic over here on the right of the screen that shows you what the electrons look like. Now, the electrons are negatively charged particles that are found around an atom. In the core of the atom, or we call that the nucleus of the atom, contains neutrons and protons. So there's three parts that make up each of the atoms, and the movement of the negative charges here, the electrons, is what makes electricity flow. So that movement of electrons creates the electric current that we have in our homes and in your electronic or your battery powered devices. Now there's a term here that we need to be familiar with is amperage. Amperage is the rate of the flow of electrons that the current is measured from. We measure this electric current in units called amperes or amps. So if you ever see anybody say, what is the amperage rating of a piece of equipment or of the device that you've got, that's what we're measuring. We're measuring the flow of current. And 1/1000th of an amp is called a milliamp. So most of our things that we are using milliamps of power. Things like your toaster and your light bulbs are using amps. And if you ever get a chance to look at your electric bill, they measure your electric for your home in kiloamps, thousands of amps, okay? So think of a light bulb as 1 amp, and your house uses 1,000 of those probably each month. So 1,000 light bulbs turned on for 1 hour would be 1,000 amps per hour, okay? So your electronics use 1,000th of an amp, so very, very small, and your toaster and your oven and large devices in your house use much more power. I'm gonna check our Zoom meeting one more time to make sure nobody's joined in here. Let's see here. Okay, we're still good. I'll go back to my presentation. Okay, so that sounds exciting about what is the measurement here of our units of electrons, and that's amperage. So in order for us to have an electrical circuit, the electrical circuit is the path that we have for the electrons to flow. So in order for electricity to flow, we must have a path. And we've got a little picture here, a graphic that shows you our electrical circuit. So we've got a complete circle here. That's what the path is for our electrons, is where the electrons move along that path in order to make our circuit. So the electrical circuit must also have a pusher or an energy source. And the batteries that we're going to use in your little circuit that you're building is going to be the pusher. So the pusher is going to be the energy source for your electrical circuit here. The pusher in your home or your electricity at your home is the power plant. So your power plant is somewhere here in town or maybe somewhere in the state of Indiana, and it generates power and pushes power down the electric lines along the side of the road that you see, and it comes to your house. So that's the pusher for your home electric. And we measure the pushing force in units called voltage. And that's by the capital V. If you ever see anything with like a 6V or a 1.5V, that is 1.5 volts. So if you look at a battery, and I'm going to give you an assignment here, if you would find some kind of battery, either a AA or a AAA or a C type of battery, you can find on the battery probably a voltage written on it and find out. And when we come back next week with our building of the circuit, we'll have to know how much voltage is each one of our battery cells in order to power our circuit. Now we have a couple things we call conductors and insulators. These are the materials that we use to control the flow of electricity. And these materials are called insulators and conductors. And since electricity needs a path, we need materials that conduct or allow the electricity to flow in a circuit, okay? So that path must be very freely available for those electrons to pass through or to flow in that path. And can you name some good conductors, anybody? If you want to unmute your microphone, you can tell me what a good conductor is. Anybody guess what one might be?
Copper.
Copper. Very good. Any others?
Iron.
Iron. Can anybody think of any others?
Metal.
Any kind of metals, usually, yes.
Gold.
Okay, wood. What kind of wood? Can you be more specific about the wood?
Glass.
Okay, glass. Glass is not a conductor. Let's go back to the wood. So wood, if we have dry wood is not a conductor, but what about wet wood? I think somebody said wood, so wet wood would be a conductor. So why is wet wood a conductor? Well, water is also a good conductor, okay? So look at some of our conductors here. We've got copper, somebody mentioned copper, steel and iron, aluminum, water, and our bodies. Why do you think our bodies are good conductors? Well, our bodies are good conductors because they're made up mostly of water. Okay, so if you get your body in a circuit, it's going to conduct electricity. So that's why everybody says be careful, don't get shocked by plugging something in or getting into the electrical circuit. Or if you see a power line down on the ground, you don't want to get close to it or touch it, because your body will become a conductor of the electricity, and that electricity will pass through your body. And why don't we want electricity to pass through our bodies? Well, we have an electrical device in our body that keeps our body running, and that's called our heart. So any kind of other electrical noise or any kind of electrical current passing through our body is not healthy for us, because it will mess up the rhythm of our heart and stop the beating or cause it to beat irregularly. And so we don't want that to happen. So we need to keep our bodies out of the electrical circuit. So we have other devices here that we call insulators. These insulators do not allow electricity to easily pass through them, or it stops the flow of electricity. And what maybe are some good insulators that you can think of? Anybody can tell me a good insulator? Don't forget to unmute your microphone. If you can think of an insulator, tell me what an insulator might be.
Rubber. Glass. Wood.
Okay, we got wood, rubber, glass.
Styrofoam.
Anything else?
Plastic.
Plastic, okay. So those are some good insulators. Okay, so rubber, plastic, remember the dry wood, it has to be dry, and glass, okay? So those are our most common ones. So there's another activity within our workbook here that you can pull up and find in your home, and then mark on here whether it's an insulator or a conductor. So predict each of these items here on that list, and you can go through and then collect those items and put them in a box. That'll be something that we can use later when we build our circuit, and you can put them in your circuit to test them to see if your prediction was correct or not, to find out is it a insulator or a conductor. So let's talk about open circuits here. Open circuits versus closed circuits are two different types of circuits that we have. And remember, we need a path in order for electricity to flow. So an open circuit is not a complete path, and it has a break in it. If you look here at our graphic, the railroad track has a break in it. So this is what we would call an open circuit. It's opened up. And this would not allow the electricity to flow, and the train could not move around the track, okay? So the train would just go around to the open spot and it would stop. The same way with electricity. The electricity is sitting there and it's moving down the wire, but it does not do any work, because once it comes to the open spot, it stops. Okay, so that is our open circuit. And remember, the electricity needs a complete path in order to allow the electrons to flow. So that's where we have a complete path that we call a closed circuit. The closed circuit is a complete path, and it allows electrons to flow all the way around the complete path and do its work. So as you can see, we've got the train track that's a complete circle with our train, and it will allow the train to move around. So are you in control? How would you easily control a circuit and change it from an open to a closed circuit easily and safely? Anybody have any ideas?
You could switch it.
Okay, you switch it. Very good. So the switching here, we're going to install a switch. You've got a switch in every room of your house, or maybe even on the light itself. And every time you want to turn the power on or off, you turn the switch or you flip the switch. Now, the switch is very unique. Our switch that we're going to use here in our project is an open single pole, single throw switch. It's like what we call a knife blade switch. Everything's exposed so you can see the workings of it. Normally your switch in your wall, it's all molded inside of plastic and covered up so you don't see how it's working. So as the handle here that has plastic on it is an insulator, you're able to touch that. And then you open the blade up, and this is made of metal. That's the conductor part. And when it closes and comes down and makes contact on this other side, it completes the circuit. So if we put a wire on each of these terminals going around in a complete circle, when we close that, it will allow our switch to allow electricity to flow through the circuit in a complete path. And so that's why we installed that control device, which we call the switch. And again, that switch has both insulators and conductors on it so that we can safely control the electric and easily control it. Now I've got another hazard or another activity for you to do. And this is also in the workbook. And you can do this sheet here. With your parents, I want you to do a survey in your house or a room in your house. And I want you to fill out this table and look to find any electrical hazards that you might be able to identify in your house. Some of the things that maybe people have in their house that they don't realize is maybe a frayed extension cord on a lamp. So take a look at your lamp cords and see if any of the lamp cords are maybe deteriorating or broken, or there's an exposed wire, anything like that. Go through and look in your house to see if you can find any electrical hazards. Then there's a part here as what you did to correct the hazard. So maybe you had to replace the cord, or you had to buy a new cord, something that you might have. So take a look around in your house here with your parents and go from a room or throughout the same procedure in your whole house and look for electrical hazards. That's a fun activity to do, and you can make things safe by identifying any hazards that you might have. Anybody have any hazards that you can think of that you have come across lately in your home?
My sister broke a cord.
Okay, so had to replace the cord if you were having a bad connection there on the cord or broke it. Anybody else have any electrical hazards that you've fixed lately? Well, hopefully you don't have any electrical hazards, but this will be a good activity for you to go through and do that. Now, there's a couple things I need you to do to prepare for our next workshop. Before we come back and meet, I need you to prepare your circuit board that you're going to be mounting your electrical circuit on. This is your homework here. You can make that board out of pine, oak, walnut, plywood, plastic, composite wood, anything you would like to do that you might have around the house there. You don't have to buy anything special. You probably have some scrap lumber or something that you can put some screws into and mount your circuit to. The size is not critical, but if you find a piece, cut it approximately 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. It can be 3/4 of an inch thick. It can be an inch thick, but you want to make sure that the board is not too large, okay? If you buy a board at the store that's say a 1x6 board, it actually is a 1/2 inch smaller or a 1/4 inch on each dimension. So it'd be 5.5 inches by 3/4 of an inch thick. So that's why we say about 5.5 by 5.5. So if you have a 1x6 piece of lumber, that will work fine. If you want to cut it out of a larger piece of wood, You can do 6 by 6 is just fine. You just don't want anything that's so large like a 12 by 12. You'd have this enormous board with this little tiny project on it, and you probably don't need anything that large. So find that and work on that for the next meeting that we're going to have. Also, I need you to prepare your board before the next meeting. So you can leave it natural, or you can paint it, you can stain it, or you can even put decorations on it. Remember, this is your board and we want you to have fun with it. So have fun decorating, painting, whatever that is. Make sure to do that before the night before so that it's not still wet if you're painting your board. You don't want that you're working with to mount your project on, and it'll make it hard to work with. So make sure that you do that early enough in the week here so that you can have a chance to get that all done and cured if you are going to do some kind of preparation to it. And remember, the judge is going to judge your project on the electrical work that you do for the project, and your board is just a presentation part. We want it to be neat, so put your best effort into building the project and making the board neat, but it's not critical because the judge will be judging your electrical work that you will be doing here in the project. Also, before the next meeting, you can visit the State Electric page and download and print off a picture of the layout. This layout here helps us position the components on the board that we're going to mount. And if you need a copy of that, I can email it to you, or you can download it from the page. In fact, I'll send out an email with that electronic version for everybody so that they have that. And that will be important for us to have that for you to be able to lay out your board for the next meeting. Okay, and our last slide here is the resources that I have. So all of our pictures and information came from our electric manual that you're able to download online from the Purdue website. And then the electric page here for 4-H is available. And the kits are going to be available in the extension office, which is going to be open after May 1st. So we will not hold our next meeting until after that office is open. So if anybody needs to obtain their electric kits, they can do that. Okay. And I don't know that anybody needs any tools at this point, but if there are some tools that you need, and we can talk about that in an email, or you can call, that you can obtain those from any kind of electronics distributor or here from my company, eeinabox.com. And there's some tools there that you might want for a soldering iron. We'll talk about that here in the next workshop, but you won't need that in the next workshop. We're just going to build, and we'll do a third workshop where you'll solder things. So we'll cover that information in the future workshop. Any questions for anybody? Okay.
How do they judge?
Okay, ask me that question one more time.
Go ahead, say it again.
What?
He didn't hear you. Go ahead, say it again.
How do they judge?
Okay, we'll cover that next time. And there's a score sheet that the judge will look at each of the concepts that you put on your board there. So they'll see if you wired your circuit correctly. And they'll look to see if you made your connections correctly. And they'll see if you damaged the wire or the insulation on your project. And so they'll look at those items, and we'll go over the scorecard so that you'll know what items that they are judging, so that when you go in and talk to the judge, you'll know beforehand exactly what you need to accomplish to get a good ribbon on your project. Thanks for that question. Any other questions? Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I'll let everybody go. And thank you for joining me tonight. And watch for an email. I'll send out some information, and we'll get some more data to you here.
No.
And then get everything scheduled for our next meeting where we'll have you assemble your project. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wave your hand, say